We don't change the world by what we say or what we do, but rather who we become.
You want to become the message so much and embody it so much that you don't even have to articulate.
If we truly want to change things, then the work always comes back. It's who we become.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Like, oh, you think this person is in your life for you to help them? No. God has many messengers. There are many people he can send to help this person. He doesn't need you to help. Welcome to the In Search of More podcast. I am your host, Ellie Nash. Join me weekly on my quest for more from myself and more from this world. We'll see you on the other side. All right, Tyler, what's up? So I read this in Power vs. Force by David Hawkins. He said, we don't change the world by what we say or what we do, but rather who we become. How's that land for you? For me, it dropped like a boom.
I guess
It was like a money shot.
I understand the idea that actions speak louder than words, right?
Well, yeah.
But how does what we do differ from you said who we become?
Yes.
How do those two differ?
Well, we can do anything, right? You can go now, walk into Publix and pay for a few people's shopping carts. That's what you did. And then you can become a charitable person, which is someone who's generous with their time, with their money, with their resources, with what they have. They're comfortable sharing this. You can do something, and yes, you can sometimes have to act your way into being, right? You do that enough times and you get the feedback from it, you'll start doing it probably more and more. But the change is by what we become. Meaning, so why was it so, like, why was like the money shot for me is because so many of us want to, let's talk about saying. How many teachers are teaching things that you know they don't believe? You just freaking know it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's I don't know, the fat man talking about exercise.
Right. Right.
It's
right.
these ideas that we know that person doesn't believe. When we hear it from them. But they're saying, hey, it's a good idea. Why don't I share it with the world? Like, why not? So you see it a lot in religious circles where you'll see people sharing ideas, sharing concepts, and say, okay, these are good concepts. These are good concepts to share or teach. They're good. They would be good for the world. They themselves don't, I want to say believe it. They themselves don't own it.
Embody it.
Yes, they are not those lessons.
Right.
Meaning a lot of ideas I have may be similar to someone else's. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't get it from there.
Right.
Right? Meaning, I'm not talking about things, even though in this case I'm talking about something I read in a book, it's because something about my experience, like this landed for me. I read a whole book and this one sentence was boom.
And it's a big book.
Right.
It's a tough read too.
The Power vs. Force?
Yeah. It's a tough read. I was one of the, I may have mentioned this, we had to read this book for a previous company of mine, but no, so did this land for you because you had experienced this with other people, or because there was something deep inside you that knew that you weren't living up to this?
It dovetails so much with some of the other things we've been talking about on the podcast, and this continuous message. For me, it's this constant reminder of this is about me. This is about my process. This is about me. This is about I get this lesson like 10 times a week. Like, oh, you think this person is in your life for you to help them? No.
Right.
No. God has many messengers. There are many people he can send to help this person. He doesn't need you to help.
Right.
They're there to help you. And every time you get tripped up, every time I get tripped up on this little thing, right, I'm reminded again. It's like, no, it's about me. It's about me. So for this was, hey, this one's about me. Because there's a sense sometimes as you're going, it's like, okay, I just got it. Like, that's what this is all about. I got it. And no, it's not. You've never got it. So what happens is, and you see it a lot, kind of, to me, it's like the holistic healing versus the Western healing. So much of Western healing is, okay, I'm going to go to, and I'm talking about mental health healing, is I'm going to go to a therapist who's been trained for a bunch of years and knows these modalities really well. And whether they themselves whether they do or don't embody this message is irrelevant. Then you take, let's say, the 12-step approach. It's like, no, you're not going to get a drunk sponsor. Like, why would you do that? But someone who's learned this, who's become this, who's spent 5, 6, 7 years learning how to navigate a life without alcohol, and now you're trying to do it, and then they are all these lessons. So they're not sitting there and, oh, here's a checklist, because then they would just write a book. Here, take it.
Right.
No, they're sponsoring you through this process. Why? Because who they become has been what allows you to change. You sitting with that person, you become them, and then you are them, and then you are where they are, right? So a sponsor is the model, the role model for it. So the point is, and the same is true in a lot of the more holistic healing ways, right? The shaman doesn't serve medicine. First, he drinks the medicine,
Right.
then he serves the medicine. Right? Meaning that the shaman is in on this game too. Yes, he's done it more times, and maybe he's not struggling with the same thing you are, but he's taking the medicine too. He has not stopped. And Shaman Omar, who we've interviewed, he says, if your shaman's not drinking the medicine, don't trust the shaman. You want a shaman who's drinking the medicine that he's serving you. That's my point. My point is that if we truly want to change things, then the work always comes back. It's who we become, and it's continuing to work on that. And then as we do that, then just more people in our world become that. I'm not going to say enough things to make the world a good place.
Right.
We're going to become it, and then little concentric circles, our little circle's going to get healthier, and so on and so forth.
It's like the last episode we just did. We talked about, for example, you understand the toxicity of secrets, right? And you could have this generational backlog of secrecy, right? And it stops with you, and then all of a sudden now your children understand that secrets aren't okay, right? Because you've become this and you've embodied this, and now they understand without even having to have it articulated to them that secrets aren't okay. And then what are they going to do? They're going to teach the people around them that secrets aren't okay.
But they're
and
not
their
gonna,
children.
But they're not going to teach them, meaning they're not going to say it. Because
it's going to be understood, I suppose.
Yes, they're going to live it. They're not even going to know.
Right.
They wouldn't even know. They won't even know they know it.
Right.
Because they won't even know there was something else to know.
Right.
There's nothing to teach.
Right.
For example, America generally values freedom, right? It does. It does. And it's because we do that we don't really understand the possibility of not having freedom, because we don't really see how crazy that can become.
Right.
The life of no freedom. So in a lot of ways, we've begun to embody this idea of we are free people.
Right.
And there's another side of it that, yes, if there aren't certain ideas communicated and understanding that there's a risk from the outside, certain ideas we have to transmit to the youth. And we spoke about that in a previous podcast. But this idea that we are free. So I'll give you an example. So imagine someone who was freed from slavery. There would be the real distinct possibility that for years before going to the bathroom, they thought they had to ask someone for permission. They would continue, they may continue to live until they get out of the mindset of slavery. They may still have this idea in their head that they need permission from someone to, and they can end up communicating that to their children without even knowing it. It's the child is just asking for way too much permission to do something.
Right.
And then eventually one breaks it. I don't even ask anyone. I'm a free man. If I'm not hurting anyone, I can try anything. I can do anything. Let's go for it.
Right.
That person's free. And now their child doesn't even know about their great grandfather who was freed from slavery. This concept of that one could even be in this mental prison of slavery and thinking they just think this is the way of the world. This is what you do. You do whatever you want. You don't have to. So they've been granted a gift. It wasn't earned, but been granted a gift, and now they live that.
Well, it's understandable why that hit like a ton of bricks. Now, at least, you know. Well, it's not only that, but, and this may be simplifying it, right? But if you see somebody, like, let's use the example of the fat person who preaches about exercise, right? You see that person and you know they're full of it. And you can usually tell when a person's full of it, right?
Right. I'm not giving ab works out. Don't follow that routine.
No, but you know, people.
We can do the routine of how to feel good anyway.
People generally see you and I would imagine, at least I do, I'll speak for myself. I know that you believe in what you're saying because you embody it, right? Which leads me to want to listen to what you have to say, right? And even potentially share it with other people, right? So I guess just to bolster your point is it's easy to see that you're not full of it, so I want to go spread your message. Or not even spread your message. I want to embody your message. And I guess even more so than your message, what I see works for you. Right?
That's the change, right? So when
Right.
you have something and others say, okay, how did that happen? How did you go? So whatever someone may be moved by, whether it's a sense of peace or a sense of courage or lack of shame in certain areas, whatever it is, right? That someone may see as, hey, I want that. I feel that I want that. How do I get that? And then you're not going to communicate that as well through saying it to people. It's like, okay, let me sit here on this low level without having ever accessed this state, but share with them the ideas of someone who did. And I'm just going to repeat these ideas and hope that it changes the world. It's not going to move it. What's going to move it is us elevating ourselves. So imagine there's the guru. Okay, and the guru's worked for years and years and years and has become tremendously enlightened and has lessons. Repeating this guru's lessons forever is not going to move the needle. It's becoming the guru as much like the guru, and as many people as possible becoming like the guru. That's what's going to that's what's going to get that person's message out to the world. So if there's someone, right, if there's some teacher, and some of these teachers are more well known than others, some are, you know, sitting on a mountaintop and, you know, they've worked through years and years and years to get to a place of tremendous enlightenment, and now they have enlightenment. So they share this idea, and you're like, wow, this idea can change the world. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take their books, I'm going to publish them, I'm going to put them out there, I'm going to share their message with the world and everything else. It's not going to mean much unless someone takes those ideas and then becomes that person. But it's going to mean a ton if someone does become that person. If someone becomes those ideas, then that's the change. That's the change that's going to happen. You see a lot of expressions of this point, and it kind of similar to some other, the concept of patient zero, but this takes it like we are patient zero, everything's about us. It's some of that idea, but this is a little bit like an extension.
Well, it's like
of that idea.
Maybe, I don't know, be the change you want to see in the world.
Kind of, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, very similar to that. Like, you know, so imagine there is a teacher who you really feel that if their message got out to the world would be a better place. Then the way to make that happen is to you yourself study the teachings of this teacher so well until you become as close to the teacher as possible, and then walking through life, things will change.
So I guess 2 reasons.
Putting his books around is not
right. So I guess a couple reasons why that's so powerful is because, one, you have to understand the message well enough to articulate it for yourself. Because if you can't articulate it for yourself, you don't.
Part of it, yeah.
You're right. And then I guess the second part, or there's probably more parts, but the second part I'm thinking of is because um, it's like we said earlier, you want to become the message so much and embody it so much that you don't even have to articulate it.
Right. Okay. And this maybe kind of hits the point home in a different way. Is very often we're let's say we're reading a book or we're learning something
Right.
or we're going through a plant medicine journey. Doesn't make a difference, right? Any of these things, we're learning something, and we're like, well, I have to remember that. I have to remember that. Why do we want to remember it? I want to remember it to remind ourselves, to tell someone else. For what reason we want to remember it? Don't remember it. Become it. Like the point that I'm making is the change that we're going to make is not by saying, hey, let me communicate this idea to you. It's not enough.
Right.
Become the person. You won't even have to communicate the idea.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You'll walk through the streets and people will feel it. They will just know. You'll resonate that idea. People will drink. They'll be swimming in that idea just being in your presence. And that will be the change. And you can say it 1,000 times and it'll hardly make an iota of a difference until one of them says, you know what? I'm going to work my ass off to become that.
Right.
Who told you that? Let me read his books. Then let me, then let me do the work of becoming that. That's how we change. We change by becoming what it is. And I guess it's sensitivity and why I'm passionate about this is that I've seen a lot of the former approach of here's this guru who's done the work. Here's someone who's reached a state of enlightenment. Let me just share his message with the world as if this will do something. It's going to do very little. You want that message to get out there? Become that. Do the work of becoming that. Go through the process of becoming what he's become. And then the change will happen without you even remembering
Right.
or handing out his books.
The change in the world, you mean?
Exactly, yeah.
And because just
A lot of us are trying to change the world
right.
by what we say and what we do. And this
Right.
point is, no, that's not change.
It's who you are.
It's who you
who
are. You
you
start
become.
vibrating different. Just
Yeah.
someone will pass you for a second and they'll just know it.
It seems so simple, doesn't it?
It's
Maybe
the
not in
hardest way.
execution, but
No, it's the hardest way. That's why everyone does the opposite.
the idea. The
idea
idea
is
is
simple.
it just
so simple.
clicks, right?
Right.
It's like
also-
obviously.
It's not so obvious. So if you want to do something meaningful, what would you do today? If you want to do, okay, I want to do something meaningful in the world, what would you do? Normally, that's going to be an external expression in some way. Even this is a form of an external expression.
Right.
But this is not the work. What we're doing here is not the work. This is the gift from sitting in the sewer for hours. Coming out with something and then saying, okay, here's my gift. Right, let me share it. Here's the gift that I got as part of the process. Let me share it. Let me share a little bit of it. This is not the work. This is not the change in the world. The change in the world is going in. So if I want to make a difference, the real work is done in the middle of the night alone, working through something.
Right.
Saying you let go of that resentment, or you let go of, whatever it was that you were holding on to. That's the move. Don't talk about resentments. How much of that changes? Just let that resentment go. And without you even ever saying a word, but you don't have to remember it. You have to remember it. You will just become that change. My first plant medicine journeys, I was writing notes like crazy. I'm trying to remember everything. At some point I said, too much to remember. So just don't remember. Become them. Become that piece of information. Become that knowledge. Become the wisdom. And that's it. But that's work. It's not that's it. That's the work. That's the hard part. It's going into the gutter to get the gold.
Much easier said than
So
done.
right. So that's what I mean is that instinctively we're programmed that if we want to make a change, then it's an external expression. And I'm saying no. You want to make a change? Do the work inwardly. Do that deep work. And it's like, hey, what do? I change the world today? Why? By sitting, working through this issue. Yeah, I'm not saying sit there forever. Don't sit in therapy forever. Of course not. But you'll know when it's time to come out. It's time to come out when that work's done. And then then you get, okay, you enjoy this. This is something you like doing. Okay, so now you have something to share. And you'll do this. But this is not the work. The work is going back in and doing it again and again and again and again. Otherwise, these will get stale fast. I'll be talking about porn addiction for the next 10 years. Who wants to hear that?
Right.
I don't want to talk about it. Are you the porn addict guy? No, I'm not any guy. No. I'm the guy who's working,
Right.
right? Who's working to change, who's working to do something, who's working to move. So the lesson I learned 5 years ago about porn addiction, I'm going to keep talking about it and keep talking about it forever. There are lessons that we can now connect, an extension of it, an extension, and sure, go back to it. And if someone's in that struggle, so talk to them about it as a hook, but then bring them back to where I am today, But I'm not looping through the same thought forever. So I go to the gutter once, get the gold, and sure, no, keep doing it. And that's the change. The change is to continuously go back in and go back in and go back in and find it's never-ending process.
This might be a silly question, but I guess how do you know what to go in and change?
It comes up. It'll just come up.
Right. Once you change one thing, you'll see another thing come up and another thing.
Yeah, it'll be a trigger. It'll be something like what bothered me today. What am I frustrated with? What am I angry at? What am I
So I guess part of that
holding on to? What can I let go of? What am I obsessing over? Ruminating? Hey, why is that there?
Do a daily meditation.
Could be, yeah. Prayer, meditation, yeah.
Was it Schneur Kaplan that talked about this? That episode will go out soon. It's not been released as of today, but the idea that if you're going through your day and you're bothered by something, right, you should just don't focus on it, let it go, because it's not the time to deal with it, right? But go back, have a specific time in the day where you do go, and
yeah, I think it was you who mentioned that.
Yeah.
Meaning, if you're out there doing something, right, and that voice comes in, that's not a holy voice. But come back in at a later time, or it came in, boom, okay, we'll reconnect with you tonight, right? And then from there, where those times that are designated for that work is go back in, yeah, and that's why those who practice, right, spend more and more and more time. Those who get further along the path, and this is not something that I'm there far, right? I still work most of my day. There's still plenty of external expression in my life, a lot of external expression. But you see, as people go further along the journey, very often it's with a lot of time for internal expression. It's possible on the tail end of that someone can do that so rapid fire that they don't need it go in as long to get the gold.
Right.
That they can do it in a breath while they're standing there talking to you. It's possible that, as people go further along, but as you see people further along than the average person, I'm not talking to people, who've, tremendous enlightenment, but people further along the journey, yes, they'll spend more and more time inward, more and more time looking for those things that have to be removed. And as they adjust it, as they become that, then the world around them changes. Like those are the people who've had the most significant impact on the world, not the people who said certain things. They became certain things. Right? It wasn't what Martin Luther King said. To give an example, it's not Jewish. It was the boldness that he said it with. Right. It was the clarity that he said it with. Like, how did he become that? Like, it was just like standing there when so many people felt, so many black people at the time felt like slaves and felt weakened and felt disempowered. And he sat there with a clarity and conviction. And it's not what he said. I Have a Dream is not what he said. It's how he said it. And it just felt so freaking real. And like, where did this booming voice come from? When so many felt disenfranchised and powerless. And out comes this guy who's like, became something else. And boom, and lifted up so many people, not only black people, but so many others, and said, holy shit, like, what is that? Like, he became something, and it had to be from, I would have to imagine there was something that he went into to pull that kind of power out, and then boom, the world, and it was still, like, that message is still reverberating. It wasn't words he said, it was an expression of something deep down. That's what, when you hear the tapes of that, you just feel like a power behind those words.
Right.
And so where did that come from? And when you put it in context of who was this guy and what time frame was he doing, so many felt disenfranchised at that time. So many felt powerless.
Right.
And you're standing behind a microphone, booming voice, power from the gut, commanding the world. Like, I have a dream. Right. It's not like any anger, any frustration. It wasn't like it was of anger. It was like a good anger. It wasn't like this.
It was a power.
Yeah, it wasn't like, don't pity me, don't hate. It was boom, force. So he became that, then he expressed it. And that's what reverberated. So it wasn't if he would have given that speech to someone else as an example and say, here's what you're going to say. You're going to stand up and you're going to say, I have a dream, blah, blah, blah. That would have been felt? I don't think so.
I understand the idea 100%. But I guess I wonder, or what keeps popping in my head is it sounds like you really, to do the work at least. Like it's one idea to become who you idolize, right? Like but to go in and do the work, like you're saying, it makes it sound like you have to be really in tune with yourself, which I feel like
Yes.
isn't as easy. It takes a lot of work to be in tune with yourself and to actually hear those things.
Well, not as much as you think. And I'll tell you why. It's like it doesn't take that much work to be in tune with yourself. Because we do so many things to consciously numb, escape, and distract from ourselves. So all we need to do to be in tune with ourselves is stop numbing, stop escaping, stop distracting. Just sit inside by yourself for 30 minutes, breathe, don't breathe, write notes, whatever, right? Something where there isn't tons of distraction. How many people, I know for me it was years and years and years where every time I felt an uncomfortable emotion, I just numbed it.
Right.
Either through work or through a pornography or through some other form of drama or chaos or conversation or whatever it was, right? All I needed to do to get in touch, all I need to do to get in touch with myself is 15 minutes alone. And if you can't do that, what does that say about you? Don't run. Right. That's what you're learning. In that, what is that you're learning? So that is extremely uncomfortable. Okay, you went in, you found out there's something about yourself that came up from inside, wasn't that you're extremely uncomfortable with. What is it? Is it something you're doing? Is it a memory from the past that you can't let go of? Is there a guilty voice in your head? Is there a shameful part of your personality? Great. So those are the things that are now the work. You don't have to do anything. It's quite the opposite. It's the easiest thing to do. Like Shays Taub says, don't just sit there, do nothing. Don't just do nothing, sit there. Don't just do nothing, say something. Don't just sit there, do something. Something like that. Okay. Don't just sit there, do something. Okay, that's the thing. Don't just sit there, do something. He says, don't just do something, sit there. That's it. Don't just do something, sit there. See, when I see a guy like Shays, right? There aren't that many rabbis out on the platform. When I see a guy like Shays, what I feel is that this man has worked to get that information. He didn't read in a book. I met the people reading a book. And then they're requoting the book. When I hear him, and the reason I like having him here, and we chat and talk about different things, is that information? Yeah, he read it in a book. Sure, he learned the Torah and everything else. But the stuff he's getting up and talking about, oh man, he excavated deep to get it, and you feel it. And then you know it's real. And it's like, okay, this guy worked. He's earned the right to say what he's saying. He's not just repeating his teacher's message. He got his teacher's message, worked to become that message, and now he's telling it to us. So it's all of that. When you call an attorney, you're not calling him for him to say something. You're calling him for the 10 years he spent in school and the 20 years he spent practicing. And then you're saying, now say something. So what is the work that earns the right to
it's because
this and other things? It's that work of going inside. It's that work of going inside. It's that work of excavation. It's that work of meditation, of private time, of finding those things that bug us and going in anyway. It's that work of not escaping, numbing, or distracting. And then within that, what did you find? Okay, now share it with us.
Right.
Then put the mic away. Go back in.
Do it again.
Get me something else new. Don't quote yourself from 2 years ago. Get me something else new. Shay said that. He said it's a disaster when I'm quoting myself. I didn't know what he was talking about when he first said it. Now I know. Right. It's so tempting. You got to do this stuff repeatedly. It's like, am I just going to quote myself from last time? The audience liked when I said it last time. I got a good response. Don't do it. Don't do it. Say something new. Find something new. You've already shared that. Especially now, it's been recorded. They can scroll back to the old podcasts. If it's something similar, say what's similar, add to it, add to it, add to it. What did you get that's new?
Right.
I think it's time for me to go back in.
Well, no, and it's when you put it in terms of a Chase or a Martin Luther King, that lands. Before I was thinking of, take like a bodybuilder, an Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? You want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, so you go lift weights, you eat healthy, you build the discipline, you do everything you have to do, right? But that's very different than what you're speaking of with a Dr. King or a Chase Taub or a Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, right? That's a whole different kind of teacher or leader, right? Like it took me a second to make that jump, but now it lands. It lands pretty heavy.
Right. Like in terms of athletes, like Kobe had that, man. You just
Right, the Mamba mentality.
Yeah, there was just something about him.
Right.
That just he worked for that. There was a tenacity, there was an energy to it that he was a gifted athlete, but he worked his ass off.
Yeah.
He didn't get there by
sheer talent.
Yeah. There were a lot of guys who feel like they got there with talent. They got there with genetics. Even though, he was tall and jumped high and everything else, there was something about it that just hours and hours and hours and hours and hours in the gym. And he knew it. He knew it. What gave him the confidence was not, like, it wasn't empty. It was that he knew. He's like, I've been in the gym at 4 a.m. every day for the last 10 years. Give me the ball. The other guys weren't in the gym then. It wasn't arrogant. He's like, give me the ball. Like, they weren't there at 4 a.m. They were sleeping. I was working. Give me the freaking ball.
Right.
It's that. And you just see it. You feel it from him. And how many generations of people have worked harder just watching this guy? Not because he said it. You felt it oozing out of him.
Right. That's the word, right? It just oozed from him. This Mamba. It's even got a name now, right? It's the Mamba mentality.
Right. And he had it probably more than any NBA player in the last generation. Like, he was the guy.
Possibly of all time.
Jordan had it.
Suppose,
but I didn't follow him as closely, but he definitely had something. If you hear his story, you definitely know it. You know that he had a chip on his shoulder a little bit. But Kobe, you just felt it. And there's also another thing about him is it's like how he kept getting better. He didn't come in as a amazing number one prospect and then, number one pick and it's forever. He worked. Jimmy Butler's got something for sure.
Right.
It's like, dude, like, you came in and you're like a much better player 10 years into the league. Like, this impressive stuff. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That, like, this guy's going in. The guy's doing the work. The guy's watching tape. He's not like, okay, I made it to the NBA. Let me coast. I'm an adult now. I learned everything I needed to as a kid. And this is where I'm at. No. Keep going in. That's where you get the gold. And that's where you got something to deliver. Anyway, that's all I got. Time to hit the gym.
That's all I got, he says. Beautiful.
Thank you.